Right. Right. I absolutely understand.
All of our panelists, please make sure that you are muted. We are about to go live with the meeting. Thank you.
This is our annual.
Try it now, Arletta.
Can you hear me, people? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I can't see your thumbs, so I'm just going to go for it. I'm Arletta Scott Williams. I'm the executive director here at ALCOSAN, and I want to welcome you to our annual public update meeting on the ALCOSAN consent decree, more specifically focused on status reports regarding the Clean Water Plan, which is, as I like to say, the crown jewel of the consent decree. This afternoon, we're going to hear from multiple speakers, all part of the ALCOSAN team. Before we get into that, I'm going to ask the ALCOSAN Director of Communications to step you through a few housekeeping issues. Jody?
Thank you, Arletta. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Just a few housekeeping items. After the presentation today, we will take your questions. So as the presentation goes along this afternoon, please do go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A, and we will get to them at the end of the presentations today. I am obligated to tell everyone that this meeting is being recorded. So if anyone is uncomfortable with that, they do need to drop off of the broadcast at this point. Otherwise, we look forward to your questions at the end. I will read them aloud, and then one of our staff members here will provide the answer. Thank you, Arletta.
Thank you, Joy. And again, thank you to everybody who has tuned in, logged in, blogged in. We appreciate your interest in the authority. There we go. Look at that. Is that a sight for sore eyes? That is the ALCOSAN wastewater treatment plant home to us. We sit here on close to 60 acres, kind of bound by the river, by the hillside, with accompanying railroad tracks. But we do a lot on this footprint. And this afternoon, you're going to hear about what we're doing, not just here, but planning on doing external to this site to get more flow into this treatment plant. We're currently at 250 million gallons a day treatment capacity. Our goal is to get to 600 million gallons a day in a staged and step process that will provide enhanced water quality for the region and keep us compliant with the consent decree. I hope everybody understands that we are a 24-hour day non-stop operation. So I like to say, flush early, flush often, flush with confidence all day long. Today, our agenda, again, as I previously stated, focuses on the Clean Water Plan and provides status updates for where we are with respect to planning. The plan has 4 primary components to improve water quality. That's what this is all about. That's what ALCOSAN has been all about since we were initially formed, improving water quality in this region. Today, we're going to hear about how the Clean Water Plan and our ongoing implementation does just that with respect to 4 areas: expansion of the treatment plant that you just saw in the previous picture, regionalization, and our efforts to regionalize sewers within the ALCOSAN service area. Source control and growth, that's keeping the flow out or minimizing unnecessary flow coming in, and a monetary support program, not just monetary, there's technical support, financial support that comes to bear through growth, green revitalization of our waterways. Lastly, you're going to hear about conveyance upgrades. Tunneling. I know some people find that to be offensive. It is a part of what we have to do here. The EPA made it very clear to us that tunnels are the great backbone of any solution to enhance water quality and meeting the requirements of the consent decree. As Joey said, we'll close out with Q&A. Your speakers today, in addition to myself, my Director of Engineering and Construction, Kim Kennedy, my Director of Regional Conveyance, Jan Oliver, and my Manager of Wet Weather Programs, Tim Prevost. For some who might be new to the matter, this could be an eye-opener. For most, it's just a quick look back at the history of how we got to where we are right now. The chart starts in 1994 with the release of the National CSO policy. Actually, ALCOSAN planning began in preparation for that policy to be released in the mid to late 80s. So we've been at this for quite some time. Between 94 and 2000, we did quite a bit of preparatory work that was required through our NPDES permit. That was the process. We followed the process. In September of 2000, we received a first draft of the consent decree. Negotiations began from there, and life has never been the same. It was a 45-page document with some very specific requirements that, through negotiating over the next several years, ended up morphing into much more than a 45-page document, but set the framework for how we in this region would achieve compliance with the National CSO policy and support the requirements of the Clean Water Act even further. Part of what was agreed to in that original consent decree, which we finalized in 2007 and was entered in January of 2008, a part of that was the necessity to develop a wet weather plan, which we now call the Clean Water Plan. That plan was developed was finalized by 2012. It was available for public comment and review and for agency review. Those agencies being the EPA, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, and the Allegheny County Health Department. Through all of those reviews and public input, it was determined that we needed a little bit more than what was planned at that time. And as we move through this, I'll give you a better understanding of why that was necessary. Negotiating over, again, the next several years, we ultimately concluded in 2019 with a modified consent decree. The primary components of the original consent decree remain in place and intact. The modifications to the consent decree allow us to address what we heard in that public comment period, in that agency review period of the wet weather plan / clean water plan. It needed to be more affordable. It needed to be more adaptable. We were able to achieve that through these most recent negotiations, which resulted in a modified consent decree being entered in May of last year, May of 2020. Quick, very high level comparison of the two. The original consent decree, I said I would explain why there was a need to modify. This depicts it very well. That original consent decree required us to complete everything that needed to be accomplished by September of 2026. Everything that was anticipated to be accomplished would have been a $3.6 billion program. Again, completed in just a few short years from now. That was not affordable. It was not feasible. Because of that, again, we renegotiated. In renegotiating, it afforded us the opportunity to extend and expand the schedule and create phases of implementation for compliance purposes. Now, instead of everything needing to be done in one large phase at an exorbitant price, we now have a first step, which gives us a $2 billion compliance requirement that will be met by 2036. So an additional 10 years. And after that, we have the ability to then negotiate and incorporate the next series of improvements. Much more affordable, much more flexible. A key component of being able to renegotiate the terms of the CD was gaining the ability to be able to propose modifications as we step through this process. So again, $2 billion upfront or first phase investment in those components that you're going to hear about today. The plant expansion, regionalization, flow reduction / source control, and regional storage and conveyance tunnels. The adaptive management piece is key. This simply lays out a time frame and framework for opportunities to incorporate adaptive management. And that is where we get the opportunity to step back and take a look at what we're proposing to see if there are opportunities to do just that, adapt and change with whatever makes sense at that time. None of this do we ever do in a vacuum. We are working in conjunction with our municipal customers who supply all the flow to us. Sure, it's not surprising to anybody. We're not here generating flow. Well, we do generate some flow, but not enough to have to plan for it. Again, the schedule, as you see it in front of you, lays out the tunneling program. It's not laying out the tunneling program because it is the only aspect of what we're doing, not because it is the primary aspect of what we're doing. Again, it is a component of what we have to do here, but it's a component with fixed scheduling right now. And as you can see, what we're trying to lay out for you here is we've got 3 tunnels that are proposed. The Ohio River Tunnel would be the first tunnel, which will be in design this year. If you look below the main part of the graph, you'll see that span that we're identifying as opportunity or window for adaptive management. You can see it moves into the design phase. There does come a time in design where you have to say, this is it, this is where we're going, this is how we're moving forward. But there is flexibility there. You'll hear more about that later in the presentation. This piece, the adaptive management concept, having it incorporated into our planning, I believe provides the flexibility that we need, creates opportunity for our municipalities to propose some different approaches, and meets the outcry that we heard with respect to what was originally proposed in 2012. I will now hand it off to Kim to talk about plan expansion.
Thank you, Arletta. So we are going to spend a few minutes talking about the wastewater treatment plant expansion program that we've been working on for quite a few years. Here are some recent photos of the construction down at the north end, which you'll hear a little bit more about in a few slides. Here again is our plant as it exists today with a capacity of 250 million gallons per day. We will get up to the full 600 with million gallons per day with 295 of secondary treatment. How are we going to do this? Well, you can see at the far northern end of the site, those are the 2 additional secondary clarifiers and a new chlorine contact tank. That is what will expand the secondary treatment capacity from the 250 up to the 295. Right in the middle of the screen is where we will put in the secondary treatment bypass. So that is for flows over 295 but up to 600. There'll be a new outfall constructed there. Down at the bottom of the screen are 2 new primary sedimentation tanks, and then we are balancing out the expansion with increased headworks or primary treatment. And then last, but certainly not least, is the tunnel dewatering pump station that will be able to pump the flows conveyed by the new conveyance tunnels and enter into the treatment plant process. So we had to break the designs into packages in order to complete the work, but still operate the facility 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. How are we going to do that? Package 1, this is under construction right now. This is what we call the North End plant expansion. We bid this project last spring. The general contractor mobilized in early fall for about $100 million worth of work. The second package is electrical distribution system upgrades. So this is a kind of a miscellaneous package. It's at about 90% design. It'll be bid this year. And this really frees the way for some of the other process improvements that are part of the plant expansion. So this is really a highly electrical package. So package 3 is actually comprised of 4 smaller jobs. This main pump station flow meters project is under construction. A couple of flow meters have already been installed, it's going well. The second is the return activated sludge. We see RAS, that's what that stands for, returned activated sludge pump and pipe replacements. That has been awarded, and we are working through some shop drawings, and I would anticipate that the general contractor will be mobilizing soon for that work. The third is a temporary hypochlorite facility, which this project is complete, and the project is operational because we had to demolish our existing hypochlorite storage facility to make way for the north end plant expansion. So that was an early project that was completed and is up and running. And then the last of the miscellaneous improvements under package 3 is some improvements to the effluent flushing water system. That's only at about 30% design, but it's coming along nicely. Then we go to package 4. This is the CSO related bypass. This is what I was speaking of. This is a new outfall, and this will take flows greater than 295 mgd up to 600 and disinfect it. And there would be a separate outfall. Now this would only be active during periods of wet weather. This would not be active during dry weather flow or normal flow operations here at the facility. Here is our East Headworks. So East Headworks is out for bid right now. This is this is probably the largest package of the final design the wastewater treatment plant expansion packages. So this is brand new screenings and grit facilities, new building, and then conveyance over to the new facilities. If anybody's been to a board meeting, this would be located right outside of the boardroom where we demolished the old operations building a couple years ago. So again, that's bidding right now. We do have to make some solids process improvements. So there will be the WAS stands for waste activated sludge, not to be confused with RAS, which is return activated sludge. But in any case, there will be some centrifuges, some thickening centrifuges proposed for installation in our existing dewatering building. And that package would be would probably move into design later this year. We have to rip down our existing laboratory and environmental compliance building to make way for some new tanks, primary sedimentation tanks. And because of that, we have to build a new laboratory, which we're calling the environmental compliance facility. So our entire environmental compliance division would be housed in the new building. And that is all work that's going to be done on our existing campus in our parking lot. So we have to build a parking garage, which is also out for bid right now. Then the package 8 is the new primary sedimentation tanks, which is a forcing function for needing that parking garage and environmental compliance facility. And then last but certainly not least, package 9 of 9 would be the wet weather pump station. And that would be designed and built in conjunction with the first phase of the conveyance tunnel, the Ohio River Tunnel. So that is our plant expansion, and the way that we broke it down so that we could have a phased approach and increase our flows from 250 million gallons per day up until 600 million gallon per day capacity. And here's just a snapshot of where we are. Sort of everything that I've spoken to. North End facilities are in construction. Package 2 is at about 90%. And the 3 sub-packages mostly complete except for the effluent flushing water system, which is just really the design has just started. We are just at the beginning phases of the design of the CSO-related bypass. East Headworks is complete. Bids are due in April. The thickening project, the waste activated sludge thickening project, will be out on the streets for design towards the end of this year. The garage will be, those bids are going to be due in March. And then the environmental compliance facility will be ready, but we can't bid that for construction until we have that garage built because of space issues. The primary sedimentation tank design RFQ will be the next RFQ out of the gate for the plant expansion projects. And then the last piece of the expansion will be the pump station, and that'll be a couple years yet before we go out for that design. So here's just a couple of images. This is an image of the proposed environmental compliance facility. At the top and at the bottom is the pump station. It's the new parking garage. So these two designs have been approved through the city of Pittsburgh. If you saw any, you may have seen some articles. When we were able to get planning commission approval, these are the projects that those were associated with. Again, this is on our campus. The garage construction will start. Hopefully we'll be in a position to award that project in March. And then the environmental compliance facility would be a year later-ish. And then that again is all on our property in our parking lot area. And then here's just some photos from our north end construction. That again has taken our secondary treatment capacity up to be 295 million gallons per day. So this is the demolition of our sodium hypochlorite storage tanks, and then also along the river, there were some mooring cells that needed to be demoed. The work on the river wall, which is a pretty big component of this, will begin this year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jan for regionalization.
Thank you, Kim. Regionalization is the component of the Clean Water Plan that includes the municipalities. We didn't get here overnight. It all started basically when ALCOSAN entered into its consent decree with the EPA, DEP, and the Allegheny County Health Department in 2008. Shortly after that, the municipalities entered into their orders with the regulatory agencies as well. It was that price tag, that $3.6 billion to make these improvements, and $500 million of that being municipal improvements. So it was at that time, ALCOSAN asked the Allegheny Conference to facilitate a regional stakeholder panel. That panel consisted of environmentalists, municipal managers, elected officials, business leaders, and we all met together to talk about what portions of the municipal systems could be run by ALCOSAN. That culminated in 2013 into the Cohen Report, and it became the product of the Regional Stakeholder Panel. A group called, which they affectionately refer to themselves as SRIC, Sewer Regionalization Implementation Committee, took it from there to determine what actual portions of the system should transfer. So in 2015, it was recommended what portions the municipal sewer should transfer, and ALCOSAN moved forward in investigating what the condition of these sewers were. So between 2016 to 2018, we had 5 contracts to map and do closed circuit TV inspection of the sewers. That's referred to often as CCTV inspection of the sewers that would transfer. And we identified problems within the sewer that would need to be repaired by the municipalities immediately, and defects in the sewers that would become part of ALCOSAN's capital improvements program. In 2019, we began the transfer agreement process. And we heard a few complaints from some of the municipal solicitors, so we took the transfer agreements back and worked through another year with some modifications, negotiating on both sides to where we're at in 2020 with the transfer agreement completed and the repairs continuing. The definition is the transfer of ownership and maintenance of trunk sewers, wet weather facilities along those trunk sewers, and related infrastructure from the customer municipalities, including diversion structures with overflows and manholes. So the sewers to transfer are multi-municipal sewers, meaning more than one municipality has sewage flow in that sewer. And that sewer is also 10 inches in diameter or greater. And when we did all of the inspection and went back and worked with the municipalities on the mapping of what constituted that multi-municipal sewer 10 inches in diameter or greater, we come up with 265 miles of sewers that would regionalize. Along those sewers, there were 8 facilities. 4 of them were equalization tanks and 4 of them were pump stations. Approximately 6,200 manholes along these sewers and 77 diversion structures with overflows. These would all become sewers that would go from the municipalities to ALCOSAN for operation, maintenance, and ownership. This is a depiction of what that looks like. Currently, ALCOSAN has sewers that run along the Allegheny, the Ohio, and the Monongahela River, also Chartiers Creek, Sawmill Run, and Turtle Creek. It's approximately 90 miles of sewer. So the new sewers, that 265 miles of sewer, are shown by the green lines. That would be the new sewers, the 265 miles to transfer to ALCOSAN. Our service area is delineated by the blue line. It's a 300 square mile service area. The triangles are pump stations that would transfer as part of the regionalization process. They are pump stations that exist along the regionalized sewers. And then the cylindrical shape, those are equalization tanks that were constructed by the municipalities. They retain flow during wet weather periods and then release that flow back to the sewer system after it quits raining and flows have subsided. So why we want to do this, I mean, in all honesty, we have minimal sewer system as it is today. The 90 miles of sewer system were constructed in the early 50s, and we just accepted that the municipalities would continue to maintain and operate their own systems. So it's really a regionalization will bring us up to where a lot of cities are across the country that have more than that 90 miles of sewer to operate and maintain. I mean, it improves the management of the system, and there's an efficiency in the costs. The maintenance and improvements, ongoing maintenance and improvements for the clean water plant are significant. It also promotes collaboration between ALCOSAN and its customer municipalities. So we talked about in 2010 dollars, there was a $3.6 billion price tag. As I mentioned, $500 million of that was for the customer municipalities. This enables us to make improvements that will collaborate with the clean water plan. It establishes a regional system. That regional system will allow us to take advantage of some of the programs EPA has recently implemented. This integrated watershed approach will allow improvements to be made where you see the best bang for your buck in water quality improvements. and it contributes to the clean water plan. Those half $500 million worth of improvements will be coordinated and constructed in places where the regional tunnel that will be talked about later will be constructed. And we'll be able to phase those improvements while the regional tunnel facilities are constructed. Progress to date, there was a lot of planning and outreach. We did not do this in a vacuum. We met with our customer municipalities. We had almost 100 meetings to discuss the maps, the direction of the flow, and what condition the sewers were in. We performed the inspections and did defect reports. They were developed very complete and comprehensive with mapping and sewer defects identified where they're at within the sewer system and recommendations about what type of improvement should be made. We did facility inspections and evaluations, and we have broken those into design packages where they are looking preliminarily at what improvements should be made to the sewer system. We'll share those costs with the municipalities on a 50-50% basis. With the defects in the sewer, the municipalities have to make the improvements to the sewers where there is imminent failure possibilities. And then the remaining defects will become part of ALCOSAN's capital improvements program. And we have provided municipal agreements to the municipalities that identify all the needs that we have in terms of easements and past maintenance records and as-built drawings. And we have the conditions of the transfer of the sewers laid out in that agreement. And we are putting those together and taking them out to the municipality currently. There are known challenges. Multiple municipalities working together requires approvals, and there's a lot of complexity in getting those organizations to work together. Confirming the sewer ownership sometimes is even difficult. A lot of times the sewer may run through a certain municipality, but was constructed by another. These are multi-municipal sewers, so they contain sewage from more than one municipality. Gathering the documentation of all these easements and rights of way has proved to be challenging. And we know that as we go forward making improvements to the sewers that are required, they will continue to be a challenge. We will collect the outstanding municipal data that's proof of the defect repairs. We're trying to collect that information in a manner that it can be placed into an asset management software so that we can manage the system that we will be obtaining, as well as we manage the system we have today. And just the funding of the repairs will be something that we will be challenging way into the future. But I think in this manner, regionalization will enable it to be done in the most cost-effective manner possible. And that is my discussion on regionalization. I'll pass it over to Tim Prevost for source control and grow.
Thank you, Jan. As ALCOSAN's moving forward, working with our municipalities to address source controls, we find ourselves dealing with a number of challenges. Main challenge would be property ownership, the complexity of the jurisdiction to which the source controls have to be implemented, the age of the existing infrastructure. ALCOSAN and the municipalities have infrastructure. ALCOSAN's infrastructure is over 50 years old, but the municipalities' infrastructure in some places is over 100 years old. And the topography, soil conditions add to the challenges that we face that are somewhat unique to this region. How did we get here? During the development of the wet weather plan, ALCOSAN released its draft. And in the public comment, there were some concerns about the role source reductions would play in our plan. So after we submitted our wet weather plan, ALCOSAN began to meet with public officials to determine whether or not there was interest to implementing source reduction projects throughout the service area. During these collaborative efforts, we started to pull together a report that culminated in 2015 with Starting at the Source. Starting at the Source identified several projects, over 200 potential source control opportunities throughout the service area. And it also laid out some initiatives. And one of those initiatives was an incentives program to which ALCOSAN could help the municipalities fund these projects through an incentive program. To do the incentive program, you need to lay out all the different factors that would go into a project like this. And also, it needed to be fair. So the municipalities, they needed to own, operate, and maintain the projects. These would not be ALCOSAN projects, these would be municipal projects. It had to be fair among all 83 of our customer municipalities. Source controls had to be for not just combined sewer systems, but also for separate sewer communities. One of the challenges that we faced regarding funding this was we could not use bonds because they were not going to end up being ALCOSAN-owned projects. So the funding is coming from ALCOSAN ratepayers. And finally, we wanted to monitor the project performance to show the investment that has been made to the region was well worth it. So we started the GROW program in 2016. As Arletta mentioned before, green revitalization of our waterways. The goals of the program, I'm gonna just jump back real quick. The goals of the construct projects that reduce sewer overflows, reduce the amount of stormwater entering into the collection systems. These projects should try their best to achieve regulatory compliance and attain flow reduction targets. Some of the program requirements, main program requirement is that you must be an ALCOSAN customer municipality or a municipal sewer authority within the ALCOSAN service area. If you are neither one of those, the GROW program is not eligible for you. Through the program, we are trying to demonstrate the most cost-effective way to reduce sewer overflow volume or the amount of flow entering into the regional collection system. That is how we determine the match that the applicant would get. Each of the applicants must own or have the legal rights to the sites. Again, we are monitoring the progress of these projects. We have pre-construction monitoring and then post-construction monitoring, and then we make the determination how effective was this project. And one of the most important aspects of the program is a 20-year O&M responsibility. To fund this project, we had to be assured that there is going to be a long-term obligation to the municipality to maintain these projects. There are 4 eligible project types in GROW. There's green stormwater infrastructure, which tries to mimic the natural environment in addressing stormwater coming down the system before it enters into the sewer system. Inflow and infiltration, which addresses defects in the pipe, which allow water, mostly groundwater, to enter into the sewer system. Direct stream inflow removal, which throughout our service area, we have some locations where streams were piped into the sewer system, and we are trying to get those out. That allows a lot of water and wet weather to enter into the sewer system and is a main component to some overflows. And finally, sewer separation. Combined sewer systems that might be able to have that stormwater piped into a new system and directed to a waterway, removing it from a combined sewer system. When we started, we were open to conceptual designs with GROW. The award range was 85 to 25%. Our monitoring requirements were not as well defined as they are now. And we had a maximum award of $1 million per project per cycle. And in that first cycle, the process was developing during the implementation. Now, where we're at, there are certain design criteria that a project must have. If it's below $1 million, it needs to be at 60% design. If it's above $1 million, it needs to be over 90% design. The award range was increased from 85 to 15%. The monitoring requirements are very well defined. The maximum award has been raised up to $10 million per project. And the process is now defined very well and to a point where it's repeatable cycle by cycle. Some of the growth statistics that we have right now, we're through our 5th cycle. Approximately 187 million gallons of overflow reduction are estimated. We have offered $43.76 million in grants for 126 projects. Throughout the entire service area of 83 communities, 48 of our municipalities and municipal authorities have been offered and awarded grants. So while we were implementing the GROW program, we also wanted to have a follow-up to our starting at the source report. And that report is controlling the source. Controlling the source can be found on the ALCOSAN website. We have an executive summary for someone who wants to go through an abridged version, the full controlling the source report, and we also have a web map, which gives us a graphical interface of all the projects that have been identified or all the projects that have been implemented through GROW. So what is controlling the source? It's a science-based evaluation for green stormwater infrastructure and the other source control projects. We identify cost estimating guidelines to try to find out and give some guidance to the most cost-effective projects available. We try to identify opportunities to leverage additional funding so that the municipalities in the end would have less of their municipal budget put into these projects. And then finally, we go through the service area and we identify opportunities to implement source reduction projects. Green stormwater infrastructure being one of the 4 main source control projects that we worked with. In controlling the source, we identified over 195 potential locations. Some of them were very strong, highly ranked projects, some were medium, and some were low ranked projects. We shared all of this information through the report back to our municipalities. Of these green stormwater infrastructure projects, they are located in 20 municipalities. And we are trying our best to have occasions where we can discuss these opportunities with the municipalities to see if they are interested in implementing them and working with them through GROW to help fund it. Some early progress, Rankin submitted a project in their ball field in cycle 5. Currently, Sharpsburg is working on advancing a green infrastructure project in their Kennedy Park. We've also, during the implementation or during the development of controlling source, we've shared concepts and the background information, the product, with our stakeholders. We've provided the green concepts to the communities when we published the report, and we are currently collaborating with PWSA and the City of Pittsburgh on green stormwater projects throughout the early stages of their project development, so that we know when these projects are coming. We can take an early look at how effective these projects are and also provide some collaborative feedback to them. I&I reduction opportunities has been in process since 2016 when ALCOSAN began doing flow monitoring throughout the service area. What you see on the left are several locations, points of connection, Streets Run, 9 Mile Run, Homestead Run. These locations are places where we did a very detailed flow monitoring program. And then after we did the flow monitoring, flow isolation studies, which on the map, you see the results of flow isolation. And areas that are in orange or red have excessive inflow infiltration coming into the system. And then we will work with those municipalities to try to identify projects that address them. And if there are locations where we can overlap with the defects that need to be addressed through regionalization, then we're trying to address 2 programs at once. Some early progress, Streets Run communities recently signed a memorandum of understanding to move forward with a major project within the trunk sewers along Streets Run and Glass Run. And that will help with their regionalization defects. We're trying to duplicate that effort in 9 Mile Run, M47, with those communities to put forward a multi-municipal I&I source control project through GROW. And then we're currently in the process of working with Homestead Run, Munhall Sanitary Sewer Municipal Authority to identify where some I&I projects could be within their community. And there are more communities that we are going to be working with as we continue the monitoring programs. Sewer separation is an opportunity that we believe is out there throughout the service area. We want to ask the question, is sewer separation more cost efficient than constructing a consolidation sewer to get to our tunnel? Is sewer separation better for overall water quality? Maybe the best answer is to keep everything the way it is and maybe address it with green infrastructure. Where are the best locations for sewer separation? And we are looking at all of these questions and providing answers through controlling the source. And finally, we identified some direct stream inflow removal opportunities. We had previously known about 33 locations where stream inflows were located. Through some geographic information system methodology, we identified 44 new locations throughout the service area, which we validated through field visits. Based on those field visits, we identified 15 locations where we put together a feasibility study to see how feasible would it be to remove these locations from the service area. Some projects that are in the queue right now. Delafield Avenue stream removal. This is a major project with Fox Chapel, O'Hara Township, and Aspinwall Borough. The flow coming down the watershed sometimes floods Delafield Avenue. We are trying to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to find a solution to get that water out of the combined sewer system and get it to the river. Currently, next door in Sharpsburg, we are working with O'Hara, Shaler, and Sharpsburg on a Ravine Street project, which is a collaboration with those municipalities and also PennDOT. And construction is to begin very soon in the spring of 2021. So in conclusion, for source controls, we're trying to just facilitate the project implementation throughout the service area. What we're trying to do is we're looking for large scale green infrastructure, looking at I&I, not just in a small subshed level, but in a large point of connection watershed level. Utilizing multiple technologies, if it's possible, say green infrastructure with sewer separation, Through it all, utilizing flow data that either we produce or the municipalities produce, and then update this based on the performance. So if we find a technology or a method that is working well, we try to duplicate that method in other areas. In the end, we're looking for the right project in the right location. ALCOSAN has offered to do some design on-calls if a municipality wanted to work with ALCOSAN's consultants. We have produced a green stormwater infrastructure guidance document, which can be found on the ALCOSAN website, and also a source control monitoring guidance document, which also can be found on our website. With that, I'll turn it back over to Kim for discussion on the tunnels.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, so the fourth component that we're going to talk about today is the additional conveyance to get the flows to the plant. In other words, the tunneling. In October of 2020, we met a fairly significant milestone in that we submitted the basis of design report to the regulatory agencies for their review. That was about 3 years plus worth of work to further dive into the new conveyance tunnels and the required associated facilities to capture and convey the flows to reduce the combined and sanitary sewer overflows. So the basis of design report recommends the size and alignment of the new tunnels and then balances out with all of the other associated elements required to be in compliance. The preliminary planner, who is the team that did the work for the basis of design report, also worked with the wastewater treatment plant, program manager, and also the GROW program manager to optimize the facility so that we weren't working in silos. We were looking at everything holistically to get the best solutions. And the basis of design report will provide the basis for now springboarding into the final design. Like Arletta said, the Ohio River Tunnel will go into final design for in 2021. The basis of the design has been laid out in this report. So the associated systems that we kind of speak of, it's the tunnel legs, but then there's regulators, there's consolidation sewers, there's the drop shaft, the vertical, basically it's a vertical sewer to take the flow from the surface sewers down into the deep tunnel, and then the adit, which takes the flow from the drop shaft over and connects it into the tunnel. So these are our associated facilities associated with the tunnel system, and words we'll be hearing for the next couple of years. So here is the current proposed horizontal alignment. Here is the Ohio River Tunnel, 18 feet in diameter. I could read that. I think it says 24,000 linear feet. Yep. Okay, here we go. Next in the queue would be the Allegheny River Tunnel. Again, it's an 18 feet and 28,000 linear feet. And then the last, but certainly not least, is the Mon River Tunnel, again at 18 feet. So the whole system is at an 18 feet diameter. And then there is a Chartiers Creek Tunnel that will go over and pick up the McKees Rocks area, the bottom of Chartiers Creek. And that's a 14-foot, proposed at this time is 14 feet diameter. And then last but certainly not least is our river crossing over to the Sawmill Run to pick up the bottom part of Sawmill Run. So that right there is our current proposed horizontal alignment as it's laid out in the basis of design report. paying attention to the notes on the side. These will be refined further as we get into final design. This is at the 15 to 20% design at this time. There will be very little disruption. This is very deep, 150 feet deep on average. So the only surface disruption would be when we are connecting to the tunnel at our drop shaft locations, and ALCOSAN will be working with the applicable neighborhood organizations throughout the design and construction phases, really to work and coordinate our work with all of you. So this is kind of what I spoke to earlier. The black Ohio River Tunnel and Allegheny River Tunnel segments at the bottom. This is just showing you a profile of how much deeper we are. So our existing interceptor on average, we're talking like 80 to 100 feet deep. The proposed is about 150 feet deep. So we're on average about 50 feet deeper than our existing infrastructure, generally in solid bedrock. We've done about 77 deep geotechnical borings to date. There will be many more geotechnical borings forthcoming during the final design phases, but getting a very, very good understanding of the geology will be a critical component of the final design process. So these are sort of some of the highlights that were established through the basis of design report and the preliminary planning process. One pass system is what is being proposed. We have been looking at the best approaches for groundwater control and have put forth some recommendations, and we'll continue to look at that for what's acceptable in the industry and what other communities have also learned from. So the adits, which are the connections from the drop shafts over to the tunnel, and then the Sawmill Run river crossing, those will be drill and blast. They're proposed to be drill and blast. And we're still evaluating the river crossing over to the Chartiers Creek to pick that up, whether or not that would be a tunnel boring machine or drill and blast. So those are some of the decisions that will be made as we move into final design. Generally speaking, this is what our a regulator would look like. There's approximately 50 proposed new regulators as part of all of the conveyance improvements. The reason they range in size from 6 feet to 12 feet, or 6 by 12 to 28 by 50 feet is they have to be designed based on the flow anticipated and modeled that would be picked up at each of those regulators. So obviously we've got some pretty big overflows in our system, and those would be the 28 by 50 foot regulators, and they can get pretty deep. They can get up to 35 feet deep, and that's at the surface. That would be like our surface work before it drops down into the tunnel. And then we've got to get the flow to the regulators, and that's where we will be proposing consolidation sewers at various diameters. And then again, that's based on the modeling and what we've seen of the flow that we need to pick up. There will be about 20 drop shafts required for all 3 legs. There's various types of drop shafts that would be identified under final design to see what's most appropriate for each of the locations, what type of flow they're going to see, and also, you know, where it is in the system, how much closer it is to the plant, whereas it's further away, and the diameters range. And then the adits, the connections from the drop shafts over the tunnel would typically be 8 feet in diameter. So back to what Arletta was saying earlier, adaptive management. I mean, this is a key component of the modified consent decree. It's a key component of the Clean Water Plan. So we will continue to coordinate and work with our municipalities through all phases of the Clean Water Plan implementation. The one thing that I would like to point out is that municipal source reduction agreements are due and as specified in the modified consent decree by 2025. So if you have a project that's in the queue that you're thinking about, please start to communicate with ALCOSAN now and start to talk to us so that we can understand and start to plan for it appropriately. And I think that is the last slide. So it is time now for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Team ALCOSAN. I hope that today you were able to gain an appreciation for the depth and breadth of this program. A lot of work has gone into it, a lot of passion, truly. The people that you heard from today, the people that are behind the scenes that you haven't heard from, they put their heart and soul into this for not just a few days, few months, few years. We're talking decades. Today, we showed you that it is truly a multifaceted approach in terms of overall solution. No one part, no one component is any more important or any more significant than another. When Kim talked to you about tunneling, she spoke to how the preliminary planner for the tunneling program actually worked and met with the program manager for Grow/Green and the program manager for the plant expansion. This is a unified, coordinated approach in collaboration with our customer municipalities as we support them through growth and regionalization. Sometimes I come across as the proud parent. That's because I am. This is good stuff, folks. I am very, very pleased with what we've been able to accomplish up to this point. I'm looking forward to your input to help us take it to the next stage. With that, let's take questions.
Thank you, Arletta. The first question comes to us from John Stephen. This is for Jan. John asked if municipalities are required to eventually transfer the trunk lines to ALCOSAN. Is it possible that some municipalities may consider transferring the sewers or wet weather facilities to a third party?
Well, I don't know that, with all due respect, John, I don't know that Jan needs to answer that particular question. Right now, there are municipalities who are in those conversations to transfer to a third party. Is it feasible? Absolutely. It is their system to do with whatever they choose. Ultimately, of course, I would like to see everything come into the ALCOSAN system because it would then truly be analogous and synonymous to what goes on in other major metropolitan areas throughout the country. But is it possible for municipalities to go with somebody else? Absolutely.
Arletta, that is our only question.
Joseph, that is impossible.
So anyone out there that is needing to have a question answered, please go do so right now.
And John, I will say thank you for the question. It was on point and timely. Well, if you don't have any questions, I can't, as I said, I'm the proud parent. I can just put up pictures of the ALCOSAN maybe not, maybe not. Well, I would ask anybody who has participated today, because you have taken the time out of what we all have, which are busy schedules. At some point, if you could go to that next step, please go to the ALCOSAN website. You are going to find additional information about all 4 of the components that you heard about today in video format. Some things that we created for our open house event that have ongoing and long-term value, and it provide a little more detail. So if you have time to do that, please do so. Also, if there's somebody who could not participate today that you think might benefit from seeing this, please direct them to our website. We will be posting it. This meeting will be available on our YouTube channel.
We do have another question, Arletta.
I figured if I just talked long enough, people would go to.
Somebody come up with
start
something.
typing.
Aaron Copeland is asking, what will the drop shafts look like on the ground surface? And will they be in alignment with community wishes?
I will let Ken talk to what the visual could look like at ground level, but I guarantee you they will be the result of conversation, collaboration, and input from community groups. We're not coming in like gangbusters, tearing up the place like a bull in a china shop. There are things that we're going to have to do a particular way, but we're going to be as respectful as we possibly can. Registered community organizations, RCOs, will be our primary vehicle and means for communicating within communities, but there will be other options for reaching folks. Again, we're not going to do this behind the scenes without participation. Kim?
No? Okay. Thank you, Arletta. So the drop shaft after construction will look like a very small building. It would be a small shed. We have several of them throughout our system right now, but it's nothing large or unsightly. And again, even that would be designed in conjunction with the neighborhood groups. But during construction, I mean, they are going to need to be opened up. There will be a large hole in the ground while we build the drop shaft and connect to the tunnel. But afterwards, we would work with each one of the communities to make sure that it was put back and designed in a way that was appropriate.
Thank you, Eric. Another good question. And folks, if we don't have anything else, that's fine. I think I see words appearing. No, I just see the transcript. Okay, see, that's what happens when you're 61 and you're all the way over here. You really think you took care of it by placing a monitor there.
One shut up.
Again, thank you for participating today. Each one teach one, each one reach one. Please direct somebody to the website to check us out. If you have questions that you perhaps have not fully formulated at this time, or you need to think through, or perhaps tonight over the socially distanced dinner table, you come up with something, email us, go to the website. Please, we want to hear from you. We need you to be a part of this process. With that, We are out in 5, 4, 3, 2,